Greetings. I'm Lori Brook, Chair of the Counseling and Human Service Department at the University of Scranton and home to the Rehabilitation Counseling Program. We're pleased to welcome you, and there are over 200 participants for our afternoon event, Dual Customer Partnerships, Connecting Talent and Business. So you'll get to know our participants in a little while, our distinguished panel. But for now, my role is to introduce my colleague, Rebecca Spirito-Dalgan. She's the director of our Rehab Counseling Education Program, and she's going to talk to you for a few minutes about CEUs and other important information. Rebecca?
Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad that you can be with us today. We have a short evaluation form that will be sent out to all participants after the event via email. This information helps us to think about and plan for future events, so we appreciate you taking the time to complete it. For those of you who have requested CEUs, those would be CRC credits for this event, please return the evaluation form and you will then be sent your CRC credit certificate for the 1.5 general CEU credits. If you have any questions about that process, please feel free to email me at rebecca.dalgin, D-A-L-G-I-N, @scranton.edu. My contact information will be sent out on the email you receive with the evaluation after today's event. After the presentation today, our panel will be available for questions and discussion. So please submit your questions in the Q&A feature at any point during the presentation, and we will be monitoring those so that during the panel we can then ask our panel participants those questions. I would now like to introduce our moderator, Kathy West Evans. Kathy is the Director of Business Relations for the National Employment Team for CSAVR, and I will turn it over to Kathy for further introductions.
Well, thank you, Lori and Rebecca. I want to start by thanking our partners at the University of Scranton. And I believe that Ed and Patricia Leahy are on, and I want to thank them for their support over the many years in terms of bringing the discussion about the dual customer approach to the forefront. I'm excited for you to see the session today, and I'm very thankful for our panelists that are joining us. It's so important in the world of vocational rehabilitation for us to understand that we've got an individual customer, and you're going to meet a very talented young man, Ethan, and we've got our business customer, and Maurice is here on the panel with us today from Hewlett Packard, but there's a whole support team here. Ethan's mom, Amy, is on the phone. We've got our great team out of Michigan on the phone. So you're going to hear how to work together as a team for the success of both of our customers, the individual, very talented, the business, getting great talent, and how we're all successful when we work together with that approach. So thank you for having us, Lori, and for hosting us once again for this dialogue. We really appreciate your partnership.
We couldn't be more pleased. And are we ready to start our program? All right, we will begin now.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Kathy West Evans, and I'm the Director of Business Relations at the Council of State Administrators of Vocational Rehabilitation. I'm fortunate enough to be able to work with a team of people across the country through our national employment team, supported by our VR directors in every state, the territories, in DC. I'm excited to bring this panel of people with us today so you can really hear the experience of how a team connects the dots to support the large talent pool that we're working with and the importance of understanding business and making those connections to opportunities. So I'm excited to have a team here from people across the country. I'm sitting in the Seattle area. Maurice is here from Boise, Idaho. We've got Danielle in Austin, Texas. We've got the Michigan team with Amy, Ethan, Jenny, and Gary. And we're recording a session for all of you in Pennsylvania. So, you know, the next step could be international. So I really would like to have most of this conversation, the stories of people involved and how all of these dots connected. So I'm excited to first introduce you to Amy and Ethan Idzior. They're out of the Michigan area, and they're going to talk about their story and how the family supported Ethan, and then we'll take you through the rest of the team. So Amy and Ethan.
Hi, Kathy. Thanks for having us here today and everyone that is on here with us. It's kind of surreal for us to be doing this. I'm an autism teacher, so I've had my opportunity for 20 some years to go to autism conferences and talk with all kinds of people, and I never thought that my own son's story was going to be such a great outcome. It's been really fascinating to go through it with him. We're very lucky, we get along really well, and we just keep helping each other. Through the process, I think the biggest thing for people to really understand is when Ethan was little with Asperger's, I was a learning disabilities teacher. So when Ethan was young, he was able to say colors, letters, numbers, shapes, and even read very early. And so I was like, woohoo, doesn't have a learning disability. And I, just kind of went through all of that with him. And then we started to realize when he started preschool that, he couldn't transition. He would get upset about things, have a lot of behavioral meltdowns, have a lot of sensory issues. And that was a really tough thing for me to go through. But I think as a teacher, it helped me a lot because I had to go through essentially that grieving process to figure out, what he was going to need as a son and what reality was going to look like for us. So you don't really know when they're little, but we got him into speech therapy and play therapy and had him go into all kinds of settings right away. And I was told that he was smart enough to figure out anything. So I just always had that expectation that, okay, he's smart enough, we'll just figure this out. And
like, as long as you were able to kind of write out the social story to explain kind of how things worked, I was able to figure things out. I didn't really have the intuitive sense of how things worked, largely because of my autism, but because you were there for me and because you were able to provide that support and because you were consistently willing to put in that work, I was still able to figure things out.
Yeah, it helps quite a bit. So all the conferences I went to, it made sense. If I would do Carol Gray's social stories and I come home and I would explain it to them, I made everything in the house visual. I was labeling things, got him in with a bunch of general ed kids who could work with him. And it worked out really well, but it was tough. It really wasn't an easy time. And we battled a lot with getting services sometimes, excuse me, and even trying to figure out what to do next. And a lot of it, just even the bullying, a lot of issues that went on, people just didn't understand him. So it's kind of interesting right now when people meet him, he's a 22-year-old man who's, doing really well, but that was a lot of work in the beginning and he wanted it and we wanted it and it, worked out well that way. So I switched my job and I was able to work with kids who have autism and I got to go to more conferences. And now I've been working 22 years with people who have autism and that's helped a lot. So a lot of times I'll sit down in my meetings and I'll say, I get it as a parent. I know what it's like. This is really tough right now. I've, been there with this. The great part about watching Ethan's story unfold is a lot of times we didn't even expect things to happen. So when we went through and started a peer mentor program for him, the kids went from really bullying him.
Yeah, I suddenly had friends in a way that I really hadn't before. I made friends among my peer group. I suddenly felt like I had people that I fit in with. It was just a sudden change.
That's probably the number one thing that we did. We did therapies and different things, but getting the kids on board so Ethan could have not an adult telling him what to do, but
having kids my age and having people in my peer group who I was around, who I was working with them, that was one of the biggest things I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we really left out,
a lot.
Yeah, the school implementing that.
That helped a lot.
Yeah, it was a really big difference. And he's still very good friends with, a couple people that he grew up with as mentors and now they're his best friends. So that works out really well for us. And then having the opportunity, Ethan happened to be able to go through a gifted and talented program. So they were always, academics was never an issue. He's very good at memorizing and knowing information. He's our trivia guy. So that's quite helpful actually. So that's always been an awesome skill set of his. At the same time, working on those social skills, not, you can't just read in the middle of class or walk out of class when things are going on or have a meltdown, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was really bad at reading in the middle of class and just kind of like, oh, wait, where does everybody go?
Yeah.
Well, I was in the middle of just reading this book.
Yeah, kind of had his own interests. So then in high school, we were able to have him start taking some college classes so that higher academics kind of helped with some behavior things where he could have more of those academic experiences. So we had the peer groups, he had the academics, and started going out to take college classes early. So I would say if someone's child is able to do those academics, keep pushing that.
Yeah,
because that
helped
a lot for him to be able to have that level of support. And and then once he got out to the college, I have to tell you, as an educator, as a parent, I had no idea how different it was going to be in college. We're used to IEPs being written and there's accommodations. Everybody, I work with them. They're my friends. People bend over backwards. They're very gracious to us. He's awesome to work with. It worked out really well. And then you get into college and it's a whole different ball game. It's different professionals. It's people who don't know. The rigor is harder. There is no late work. There is no accommodation for that. You can have time and a half on tests. That's pretty much what we were given. And so we had an experience with a professor that made my mom bear come out, and I'm like, no, this isn't how it's going to be, and
then we ended up kind of talking it out.
Amazing.
And the professor ended up having like a really good perspective on things in the end of it, and kind of like talking with her about it and talking through things. I ended up becoming like a pretty close friend with her, and she ended up becoming a mentor to me, and we kept in touch for years afterwards.
So that's where we ended up going to college, and she wrote a grant to have Temple Grandin come speak in the area, and she wrote a grant for them to have a peer mentor program start at the college, and help me understand that if I want him to be a successful adult, I have to back off, and no, you can't have late stuff, so that she just really helped us channel our energy into the right direction. And it was amazing because I got to meet Temple Grandin, which I never thought I would, in person. That was so awesome for us, and talked to her about Ethan's story. And
she kind of, I would say she definitely, like that professor really helped channel my energy kind of in the right direction towards like how I need to be like a well-functioning adult at the college level, and then like how I need to be functioning at a professional level as well.
Yeah, for sure. So that kind of all tied in at the same time then with MRS, because we were looking for Ethan to have a job before he would go away to college, and MRS stepped up right away and they helped us get a job, and he was able, that was when you tutored kids at a local center here. So we got to use what he enjoyed, academics, and get a job to work with helping kids in an after-school program. And we didn't realize like that connection was going to have such a huge connection for us then once he went to Michigan Tech, and started really looking for internships and what were we going to do with that. The internship interviews were tough. That was not a good win for him.
Career fair was very hard because like the in-person interviews, I just struggled with that format of interview. Like the in-person interviews with people who I'd just met, and in the career fair format, like in person, I just didn't really do that well, at least those first couple of years, especially.
Yeah. So having MRS be there to help Ethan and start setting things up, and then just the connection. The other big thing was having disability services actively help us at the local college, and when he went to Michigan Tech. Having that connection along with MRS really helped us even find out about the HP opportunity, which was a long shot. We heard about it, and Temple Grandin had mentioned it. It was just this onslaught of how it was so strange how it all came together. It was like, oh my goodness, I think you actually might have a chance at this. I mean, I thought he was awesome, but I'm like,
it's this thing like all the way across the country, and it's like this super long shot. It's like, well, I could apply for this. It's like a super long shot, but I'll apply for this just in case. And then I just find out that I've got it. I've got it. I've been selected for the program. I'm being flown up to Idaho. It's just, it's just amazing feeling.
Yeah, he called me at 12:30 in the morning, and that's not something that we do. So he called me from his dorm at college, and I was just so panicked that something was wrong. And instead, it was just this joyous thing, because I had gotten many panic attack calls, and this was a good one. So we were pretty happy about it, and we both flew out there. And I'm telling you, that was something else. They flew him out there for several days, really trained him, gave him that opportunity to get comfortable and to understand how to interview in that setting. So he had the knowledge background from going to college, but it really made him be an equal to interview.
For sure, because like a lot of the times in interviews, I feel like I almost like freeze up because I don't really know what to do. Like even if I know the material, almost like socially, I don't really know what to say, or I don't know what to do. And I feel like I kind of freeze up because I don't know what to say to the interviewer. But with HP, they really prepared me so well throughout the days prior to the interview itself. And because of that, I felt like I was on good footing for the interviews. And that prepared me for those interviews just at a level that I would not have been without that.
Mm-hmm.
So
then we were
thank
there.
you so much to everybody at HP.
Maurice,
that was
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, to Maurice.
Yeah,
thank you.
Definitely helped a lot. So then when we found out he got the job, then, his dad flew out there with him, and he had to get an apartment and a car and have all of just the normal stuff you would do when you have an internship. And that was quite a process to have him in Michigan. The Upper Peninsula is still 9 hours away from us. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of people don't realize that. So he still was far away from me, but we talked all the time. But to have him across the country was a huge, scary thing for us. But we're lucky. We talk all the time, and I check in with him a lot. So that helped us to be able to have that work out. And then he came back and started going to college some more, finishing up. And then this summer, kind of a weird thing with COVID going on. Tell them what your experience for
so
what this year was.
I had another internship with HP, and then because of COVID, it ended up being remote this summer. So I had my internship from this house this summer, and I ended up working on the tools team remotely this summer and doing my project from my house instead of going out to Idaho for that.
It kind of worked out well.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well, actually.
Yeah. So we know now he can, do the work at that level if he's away from me, and he can sit in his bedroom and code. Like it worked out pretty well, actually. Yeah. So we've had both of those experiences, and it's surreal. I don't even know sometimes how we got here. It's pretty amazing. It's been tough, but we just keep figuring things out. So now he'll graduate in December. With his bachelor's from Michigan Tech, and he's going to be looking for a job, and we'll figure out what that looks like at that point. So somehow we got here. I'm pretty quick. I'm thankful for everybody that does their jobs, and it's
very thankful for everybody.
It's been great.
Well, thank you, Amy and Ethan. I think everyone on the phone and in the conference would agree it's an amazing family story and an amazing individual story. And I think we're all honored to be part of it and to see your success. So I want to segue into our next presenter and kind of give you a little bit of background on Maurice Petty. Maurice was part of a team at Hewlett Packard that was looking at changing up things for Hewlett Packard in terms of the hiring program for people with disabilities. And he was working with our Idaho VR team, who happened to invite me to come over and talk with Maurice and their business resource or employee resource group. And during that, I talked about our partnership at Microsoft. Microsoft has had an Autism at Work partnership that's focused on a 2-week working interview, and then they hire from that. And our partner there at ProVail was Danielle Biddick. And Danielle worked as, we don't call them job coaches, we call them life coaches. Because as you hear from Amy and Ethan, we've got a bright person here who could probably outwork all of us except for Maurice on the computer. And so, Danielle really helped. We sat down with Microsoft, we sat down with Maurice and the team he brought to Microsoft from Hewlett Packard, and we talked about how to make it work at HP. But there's always a driver at every company, and Maurice is that driver. He's the one that had vision, and he's the one that made it happen. And so I'll turn it over to you, Maurice, part of your fan club.
Well, thank you, Kathy. It's been quite a journey, but first, just to introduce myself, my name is Maurice Petty. I'm a director for personal system services at HP. That's what I do during the day, but I'm also a parent. And the way I got involved in this actually comes from being a parent. So I have a son who is on the autism spectrum. I could relate a lot to what I was hearing from Ethan and his mom as far as just the experience growing up, going through school, etc. My son figured out how to navigate through school with IEPs and all the appropriate help and everything, went away to college, did well in college, did actually very well in college, better than we expected with him being away from home. And where we noticed he was really running into a problem was after he was done with school. Lots of job applications, and then comes the interview, and then comes the rejection notice. And as we were just trying to diagnose what's going on here, I mean, he had wonderful grades, dean's list. He actually had a little bit of prior work experience. And so we were kind of just scratching our heads. We just could not figure out, why isn't he able to make it just to this next step? And so we were talking to him about just how he approaches things and what feedback he's getting as he's going through these processes. And that's when we noticed, okay, there's something at this interview step where he's consistently being screened out. And so started doing a little research around that. And that's when we noticed, my wife and I noticed that there is a consistent theme for individuals on the autism spectrum where they tend to be screened out of hiring choices due to just socialization issues. There's traditional things that employees tend to look at as far as how they expect people to interact. There's the power handshake when you come into the interview, and there's phone screens where they expect a very active conversation, and then, the eye contact, everything in your face-to-face. And those are areas where individuals with who are on the autism spectrum tend to be screened out of the process. So I was relating actually this experience to some colleagues that I have at work. We are all part of, HP has been very great about having a number of different business networks to support different communities, and we have a business network to support individuals with disabilities. And I was bringing this issue up, and a couple other parents said, hey, I had the same issue. And I have an individual on my daughter's on the autism spectrum, and we ran into the same thing. And so we started just thinking, okay, so this is a bigger deal, we think, than what we originally were thinking. So we started looking at just what are other companies doing and what maybe could we do. And that's when we had one person on the team that had a connection with Idaho vocational rehabilitation. So we started bringing it up to them. And that's actually how we got connected to Kathy. And Kathy actually, mentioned to us what Microsoft was doing. And that just completely opened our minds as far as what was possible. So it's actually amazing how you can just have a small group of people, and we had no idea what we were doing. We just had this thing that we knew was a problem and we really wanted to solve it. But then you get connected with people who know something, like Kathy, who then introduced us to Microsoft, who introduced us to Danielle. And before we know it, we have a program. And so it was just amazing to see how the whole thing just came together. And so that one connection that we made with them, with Kathy, just was a springboard for us. Microsoft had some experience already with a program. we were able to learn a lot from what they did, but also implement how we thought it could best be done with HP. And out of that started a great relationship for us with Danielle, who really sat on our team and helped us to create what our program would look like and take some of the best of what she had learned in some other programs, but also encourage us to really develop something that would work for HP. So we started our first program a couple years ago, and we proposed to the HP team we wanted to do this program. HP is very interested in trying to get talent from any source possible, and it was pretty easy to convince them that individuals on the autism spectrum is a source of candidates we are not currently tapping into. So they were very supportive of that and said, okay, let's give it a try. So we did our first program 2 years ago. We had about 5 candidates in our cohort, and we were able to hire 2 out of that for internships. Ethan was one of those, and another individual named Danielle Robertson. And Ethan doesn't know this, but in a way, he's a guinea pig. So it was really because of both Ethan and Danielle, and just the way that they were able to excel in their internship, and the way that HP was able to see, wow, there really are talented individuals out there that if we had not done this program, there's no way we would have even gotten visibility of them, would have even brought them in. That really sold HP on the ability to do this program again and again. And so based on that first year, we were able to convince HP now to broaden the program, to take it beyond just the small program that we had with 5 candidates and 1 site to multiple sites. And I'll talk later about where we're going with the program, but just that early connection of really getting connected with Kathy, then leading to Microsoft and Danielle, and then bringing in great candidates like Ethan just has really been what has really helped us from a company standpoint convince people within the company that this really has a strong return on investment, this really has a lot of value, but also that this is something HP wants to continue to invest in as we go into the future.
Wow, what a great story. Thank you for your leadership, Maurice. I think you're being a little bit humble about how much you worked on this behind the scenes. So thank you for all of that and your personal and professional commitment. So next, we want to bring in our Michigan team, who actually helped make the connection to Ethan through their partnership with university, and hear a little bit about that connection and where it's leading in Michigan. And then we'll move there to Danielle and talk about her role, because I want her to talk a little bit about her perspective as a life coach. So Jenny and Gary.
Great. Good afternoon. Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending on your time zone. Thank you, Kathy. And again, I'm Jenny Pyatt. I'm the Executive Business Division Director for Michigan Rehabilitation Services. That's representative of the General State Vocational Rehab Agency here in Michigan. And again, just very humbling sitting here listening to Ethan and to his mom, and listening to Maurice as well, of just the impact this has had. And we just feel so humbled to be part of that, and just proud to be part of it too. So thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about our role. But really, again, a lot of the work was on Ethan's part, so he made it easy. So I guess I would like to start with just talking a little bit about our infrastructure. I think it's important to understand, when meeting needs that Maurice has expressed in terms of Hewlett Packard and the Microsofts, that for vocational rehab, it's really critical that we're responding to both our talent needs, Ethan's needs, but also where our business needs are. And so with that, several years ago, what Michigan Vocational Rehab did is we really modeled the NET, so the National Employment Team, whom Kathy is the National VR Business Director, and where we have a point of contact in each state, so that it makes it easy for business, makes it easy for Maurice to be able to reach out to Michigan, making it one person, single point of contact. So we took that model and created it in Michigan, or again, modeled it in Michigan, so that we have a point of contact in each region for Michigan. So in a few minutes, my colleague, Gary Hollick, is going to talk a little bit about his role in all of this, but we thought it was so important to make it easy for business here in the footprint of Michigan, for business, and also make it easy for our talent like Ethan to be able to connect with us too. So it's a little bit about our infrastructure and how we set up. So we have 13 business relation consultants across the state of Michigan, and they all have their respective regions that they have to cover. So when Kathy sends us messages, it's all hands on deck in Michigan, and we want to make sure that we are getting the word out to our respective partners and being able to capture the talent that our business partners are coming to with respect to what they're seeking. So with that, with respect to our business relation consultants, their caseload, if you will, or their full-time job is working with business. That is what they're doing 24/7, sometimes, right, Gary? So we really try to meet them where they're at, both for our counselors in the field and making that connectivity with what our business is seeking, but then also making sure the talent is tied to the businesses as well. So again, you know, the intent here is to kind of streamline that whole process from an internal perspective. So I'm going to have Gary talk a little bit about his role and working with Ethan, along with the connectivity to the university at Michigan Tech and our other business relation consultant that was part of that too. So Gary, it's yours.
Thank you, Jenny. Good afternoon. My name is Gary Hollick. I'm a business relations consultant. And as Jenny had mentioned, we each have a prosperity region that we cover. And I actually cover the region that Amy and Ethan live in, which is the Saginaw area. And when Jenny reached out to us consultants and told us about this opportunity with Hewlett Packard, of course, we reached out to our local colleges and other institutions and connect with their disability services offices. So they can tell us of who they might have on campus that might have the background, the talent, the skills, and be studying the specific field that HP was looking for. And so Trina Rokola, she covers the UP, which is a huge area to cover, and Michigan Tech University, where Ethan goes to school, is located up at Michigan Tech, or up in the UP. So Trina reached out to their office, and they said they had a candidate, and that's how we got connected to Ethan. So through the whole process, it was really just trying to connect back to the local office, because the local Michigan Rehabilitation Office would be the one that be working with Ethan. They had a counselor who had worked with Ethan in the past. Her name was Lisa Johnson. And so she was familiar with Ethan. I believe she had helped him get a job previous before he went to college. And it was helping her understand that this was an opportunity that was a request by a major company, Hewlett Packard, and it was a good opportunity for Ethan to go through. So then it's just helping the local office, the counselor, understand what that could look like, the process. You get questions like, you know, she knew who HP was, but she didn't know who Provail was and how they could be connected, how they could help with their life coaching. And so it's just kind of helping the counselor walk through that process, because it was a first time experience for them, and hadn't seen that type of opportunity before, and helping them walk through that process. And I think in that process, it helps the local counselor understand how things can work with a national employment team model, and how business can connect with local VR, and then we can help honor that dual customer approach and value both sides of the house, so individuals with disability as well as business and the business needs. And really though, through this whole process, we all did some work in the connectivity piece, but really Ethan's the rock star. Ethan's the one that knocked it out of the park. He went out to HP, he demonstrated value to the business. And what's great about that is now we can talk with the local offices across the whole state about, hey, this is an opportunity for your customers that you work with that have the skill set to do meaningful work with a company like HP or with other computer companies in the future, which is what we really hope happens in the long run, is we're able to talk to other businesses, much like Microsoft, HP talked to Microsoft and learn how Microsoft did it, and that it could be a success. Now we can talk to the other big companies like Dell, Apple, whomever, and say, this is an opportunity, this works, let's do it. Let's help meet the needs of the business by also meeting the needs of the individual with a disability who wants to work in the community. And Jenny, I think, has some insight about some of the other businesses that are really interested in following that model or looking at this similar model.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, so just kind of picking back off Gary's, just teeing it off here. You know, I think it's so important in terms of this message that Maurice, your work at HP, and Ethan, the hard work that you put in, you have created such a strong message and such an empowering message for both multiple people, of course, but particularly it's really hit home with all of our counselors in the field. It's had a great impact in terms of our business partners more recently. We had the fortunate opportunity to share the Hewlett Packard program and how that works statewide with all of our counselors. So Danielle and Gary, Kathy, and other team members presented just that whole process and what it looks like in terms of having an internship with HP. And the response was so significant compared to the year before. So just being able to share that story, Ethan, and people seeing like, yeah, this is real. This can really happen to your customer. We ended up having another customer from the Detroit area apply for the program and participate. So again, Ethan and Maurice, you have really paved the way to provide Voc Rehab that true connectivity with when business, you know, shows that need and sees the talent that we possess, and making that connection has just really driven a really great message. To the point that just recently we had a Cisco Net Academy, and we've had various corporate sponsors participate in that. And from the success of the students that they're having, they want to do internships. And with those internships, our businesses are trying to figure out, well, what does that look like, especially in a virtual environment, as Ethan had gotten to go through recently. So the benchmarking that HP has done, I think, is really, again, sending that message to our new business partners that are getting on board and want to hear more and want to learn more about what that looks like. And having Danielle's expertise at the table, Danielle Biddick, has really had some impact too, so that they have a better understanding that, as Maurice, you were saying, it can really happen. You know, you get the right partners in place and things start moving. And Danielle was one of those folks who really kept things moving and continues to keep it moving here in Michigan. So again, just appreciate the opportunity to share, you know, just our small role in this, and happy to be able to support and make those connections. And again, how much impact it's having on even more of our talent pool and other business partners here in Michigan that have a footprint. So thank you.
Thank you, Jenny and Gary. What a great segue to introduce Danielle. Danielle was initially our partner at the Microsoft Autism at Work. She provided the life coaching there. And really, even though she sat in the Seattle area, when Maurice said, hey, how do we do this? Danielle said, yeah, I'll be there. And I think, again, it's that commitment to our customers and supporting the vision that a great company like HP has, and Maurice, and making it happen. And then just looking at the skill sets. Wow, amazing, Ethan. That's all I could say about you. And you always have a smile on your face. Great job, Mom, too. So, I think the important thing is, as we saw this all unfold, is Danielle really has a grasp of how to support people as they're going through the process. And Ethan, you described it perfectly. You've got great skill sets, but how do I make it all connect? How do I prepare? Well, Danielle was great at Microsoft and was great at HP, and she was so great that Dell has now hired her. And now we have to go to Austin, Texas to have a conversation about that. So I want to introduce Danielle Biddick and let her kind of tell her perspective from that ground level support and the partnership and the impact she's had both locally and nationally.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you so much, all of you. This is 100% a team effort and a huge collaboration effort. We couldn't have made it happen without everyone's involvement and hard work. So really, thank you all for everything that went into all of this. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it was a couple of different things. But since I've been both outside, like working for a nonprofit, to now being within a business to run these types of initiatives, what I've learned so much is that it is absolutely imperative to have that support of a community partner, which is what I was doing to support Maurice with the HP initiative. And I was that life coach. Kathy and I put quotes on that because a lot of the time you hear with these programs that we call them job coaches, but I'm not training anyone on how to do their job. They are way smarter than I am, as Kathy pointed out. And so really what we're doing is we're taking a very person-centered approach and getting to know someone in an alternative way. So that's what we do through the interview process. We sit down, we look at the skills, and then we identify areas where they may need a little bit of extra support. In Ethan's case, he didn't really need that much extra support. I have to be honest. But I think a big takeaway is that it's all dependent on the person. If you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. It's a very famous quote. And what the importance of a job coach or a life coach is to get in there and figure out where they can, whether it be with communication skills, self-advocacy skills, where they can provide a little bit of extra guidance so that they have that connection not only with their manager or their team members, but that they feel that support along the way. And so what that looks like in this type of program is we would meet maybe on like a weekly, bi-weekly basis just to kind of talk about how things are going. And through that process, you figure out what areas someone might need a little bit of extra support. So whether that be around tools for improved executive functioning barriers or self-advocacy and effective communication styling, I think that's a lot of where I would provide that type of support. But like I said, with Ethan, it was mainly just like checking in from time to time, giving his manager a call to ensure that expectations are being met, and then really following him along the way to make sure that he was successful. And he very obviously was, because he was asked for to come back a second year around. And so Kathy, I'm not sure if that answers everything you were looking for as far as life coaching goes. I could talk about this all day.
Oh, yes, you've lived it. So yeah, no, I think that answers everything. And I do want to mention for the people listening, when we're talking about these interview processes and support, I mean, I think everyone has hit upon it. People on the spectrum, people who are neurodiverse don't always interview well in 45 minutes. So we're fortunate to have partners like Microsoft, HP, Dell, understand that we can put together a working interview, a 2-week working interview, and you really get to meet the real person. And I think that's key. And the life coach has always been a key part of that. So Danielle, do you want to tell us what you're doing at Dell?
Something that I could add, and that's training for managers. And that's a big piece of what we did during both the Microsoft program at HP, and we now do that at Dell, is to provide a different understanding around best practices and just ways in which they can be more supportive managers. And what I hear so often is that managers will come back to me and say, this has just taught me to be more thoughtful, more intentional, and it's made me a better manager because I think of things differently. And so it's just that all about bringing those diverse perspectives together. And then in the long run, I think it's really driving progress, not just for the person that gets hired on, but for the company as a whole.
So do you want to take a few minutes and tell us what you're doing at Dell as you're building out a program?
Sure. So yeah, when I was connected with Ethan, I was working for Proville, which is a nonprofit organization, and we supported the Microsoft Autism Hiring Program. Then got connected with Maurice, and actually at the time that I was just supporting Maurice in the last initiative, I got a call from Dell Technologies, and they were interested in interviewing me to lead their autism hiring program and to just develop strategies to bring in more folks with disabilities really across the board. And so now I am working toward launching our virtual program. So it's a 2-week accommodated interview process. The idea was to have kind of that typical classroom setting, but now since that's not the environment that we're living in, what I've done is jumped right into the company, said, okay, we're still going to keep pushing this forward, even with the troubles with everything being virtual. And a week from now, we will be launching the program with 22 candidates, all on a virtual platform. We've done a lot to really make sure that there's value in it and that managers have a really great involvement and takeaway from it, but more to come on how that turns out. We're very excited.
Thank you. I think the other thing that we all hear here is that business to business connection. So I know Maurice and Danielle stay in touch, as well as the team at Microsoft, and continue to learn from each other, which is a great thing to see. And we want to be there to support where they go next in their direction. So Maurice, you want to tell us a little bit about the future at HP? It looks bright. And again, thank you for driving that, Maurice.
Sure. Now that she's at Dell, Danielle doesn't tell me quite as much as she used to, but it's okay. So for those of you who don't know, Dell and HP, at least on the computing side, are pretty fierce competitors, not just for selling products, but also for talent. So it's kind of ironic that while she was working on our program, she gets hired by Dell. But I'm still trying to work through that. I'll get over it. So yes, as I mentioned, so in the first year, we had a cohort that we had very small, 5 candidates. We ended up hiring 2, Ethan being one of those. And it was really just based on selecting people for positions in Boise. Based on that program, and we actually were able to tell the story of the candidates we brought in, like Ethan, and the work that he did over the summer and how successful he was with his internship. We were able to sell this to grow in this last year beyond the Boise site to also the Houston campus, which is one of our biggest campuses as well. So then we had Boise and Houston. We doubled the amount of people that we had at our cohort from 5 to 10, and we were actually able to bring in 3 intern candidates over this last year, in addition to bringing back Ethan and another candidate. So we had 5 in total. And so as we move forward, we are expanding it beyond now the Boise and Houston campuses to additional campuses. I actually just received a call not too long ago from a couple of international sites at HP that actually were saying, hey, we would like to also participate. One's in Spain, one's in France. And so we'd also like to participate. I don't know that we're ready for that quite yet, but we will be expanding this just across all of HP. And so I'm really excited just about the future for this program. We're going through a very similar thing as what Danielle mentioned as far as, okay, what does this look like now from a virtual perspective? It has some pros and cons on how we're going to be able to handle this. We're actually looking at potentially maybe we can have more candidates because it's virtual, and there's some different ways that we can structure that. But we'll be having a program again this year. And so we're just now starting to get into the planning of that. And Ginny will be reaching out and asking for candidates from Michigan, as well as we will be also making connections to all the other VR networks across the country. And we're just really excited, not just now that the partnerships that we've built with different colleges and universities, but the other thing we've found is there's a lot more people internally within HP that have heard about this and are coming forward and saying, I want to get involved, I want to volunteer, or my child is on the autism spectrum, or I know someone who is, and I really want to get behind this. So what's gone from this little grassroots effort of a few people within HP is now expanding out to many more people who are passionate about this and really want to get involved to make it successful. So I couldn't be more thrilled about just the possibilities that we have as we move forward and continue to drive this initiative.
Thank you, Maurice. What a great way to look at that. I think building that internal capacity and the excitement is definitely key for a lot of our business customers. And both you and Danielle and the Microsoft team have helped share that with other business customers. So thank you for that support as well. So Ethan, What's your perspective of the future? Where do you see yourself going?
I would say I'm not entirely sure where I want to go. Somewhere in software development, possibly HP. I really liked working there. I love the workplace culture, especially like at the Boise site. Could definitely see myself going there. Could see myself working remotely from home. Could see myself really any number of places. Definitely see myself wanting to work, continuing somewhere in some kind of software development or firmware development. I'm definitely just amazed at how successful this has been and how this is expanding outwards and how other people are seeing their lives improved by this. I'd known that it had expanded outwards from what it was before, but I feel like until right now, it hadn't really registered in my mind just how much, like how many other sites were implementing these programs based on this or planning on it. And it's just kind of getting to me. It's just amazing to just fully just have that kind of click in my head that what I did with the Spectrum Success Program is paving the way for other people with autism to have the opportunity to succeed. And I just really hope that it gives them the opportunity to succeed.
Wow. You're a role model, Ethan. I know that's not a role you signed up for, but I think everyone on this
I was
call.
expecting this, but it's just amazing that this has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mom, did you have something to add?
I just think the big thing, what Ethan's saying is right. It's surreal to sit here and hear all of this, like to be a part of it, but even to hear how much it's impacting things. And I work with
that's why
kids.
I just can't stop smiling because I just feel like that's why you were saying that like I'm smiling because I'm just hearing about all these people saying that like other people are like it's the program being expanded. Businesses are hearing about this and are wanting to implement this, and I'm just thinking there are so many people with autism who are going to have these opportunities that they wouldn't have had before, and I'm just happy for them. Like,
it's pretty amazing. I think the big thing for me is as a teacher, I work with kids on the spectrum, and as a parent, you know, I've been blessed to, you know, work with Ethan and see all of this unfold. And the big thing is just, you know, for autism parents are special people, and you just have to keep pushing and advocating and making sure that you're getting all of the variety of services, you know, that to implement things like peer mentoring, and when he gets old enough, you know, sign up for your state level services and look for those opportunities. If your child's able to go to college, use disability services. Definitely. There's a stigma to it, and it was kind of hard with Ethan, like, oh, should we use this or not? But I'm so thankful we did. There's no way we would be sitting where we are right now with him graduating and then potentially getting a new job and being protected when not just, you know, getting a job, but keeping the job.
And like being able to like reach out and like talk with people through the HP Spectrum Success Program. Disability services were the people who kind of like got me connected with these people. So I would say reaching out to disability services was a very good idea. And for other people with autism to reach out to those kind of programs to try to connect with programs such as Spectrum Success in the future is a good idea, because that's how I got to where I am now. And I think that programs like this, especially if they're going to continue to be like growing like this in the future, they're a great way for people with autism to like overcome struggles with interviews. And I think they're a great way for us to succeed in the future.
For sure.
Well, and I think you'd agree that you may have thought about Michigan, but now you have the world open to you.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready for him to leave, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Every parent struggle, Amy.
I know, right? This is a typical thing.
Right. Well, I want to thank all of you. And I just, you know, for everyone watching, I really want you to hear the power of partnerships and the ability to connect that opportunity and talent to, you know, meeting the needs of business, but looking back at the individuals, the families, and that whole dual customer strategy that we're working all together. This, you know, this is a team effort, and it always is. So I just want everyone to hear that. I want everyone to understand that it takes a team to support both the individual, the very talented individual, and the business and their employment needs and their vision of the future. And I want to thank all of you for being part of that.
All right, well, we're going to have our partners join us here so we can have a live question and answer session, and they're coming in to join us right now. So we'll give them another minute or two. And I think on behalf of the audience, I would just love to give you a great round of applause for a wonderful session. And thank you so much. You know, it's funny because I know we recorded this at our 19th annual conference on disability back on October 6th, but I was watching it again with the same interest in your stories. And it just felt like we were live. So the power of Zoom and technology is really wonderful. But thank you for being with us. And we have a couple questions that have come in already. So are we ready for some questions and answers? Okay, the first one is for Ethan. All right. And the question is in the statement, Ethan, your story is empowering. And there may be people who are listening who are concerned about taking a risk, maybe due to fear. And what would you say to encourage them to take a risk, to step out of their comfort zone like you did for an opportunity? Oh, you're on mute, Ethan.
I would say a lot of the times, like going out of your comfort zone, I mean, inherently it's kind of uncomfortable at first, but it's the kind of thing that you kind of have to overcome that to get to where you want to be in life, is what I've found. And you kind of have to overcome those hurdles to reach what you want to accomplish, is what I've found. It's hard for me to really put that into words, but definitely try to take those risks if it's something that's what you really want to do, because it's the kind of thing that's worth it.
Very, very nicely said, Ethan. Someone said long ago, it's a quote I remember, feel the fear and do it anyway, right? Because often that can be that motivator going forward. But it was a two-part question, Amy, because they also said, from a parent's perspective, we know many parents are concerned about their sons or daughters, especially those who have not been away from home before, going out on such an adventure. And what would you say to parents who maybe their children have this opportunity and yet, you know, there's all that worry?
There's a lot of worry, and it is a very, it's very complicated to decide what to do. Ethan's always had this 1 foot in autism world and 1 foot in typical world. And so a lot of times it was a tough decision of, you know, should we really do this? Are we reaching too far? Is he taking away from someone else who needs this? And then there's the stigma of it of, you know, well, if other people find out, you know, how are they going to feel that we did this or did that? Now that we're true to life, right? Now that we're through it and on the other side of it, I would say absolutely take every service you can at any time. Like we said in the interview before, if we hadn't hooked up with those services, there's no way Ethan would have the opportunity he did with an amazing company like HP. And even right now, he actually is set to graduate in May. In the interview, we said in December. And even that, you have to realize we've had our share of setbacks. Ethan got in the middle of the semester. We're in the middle of a pandemic. His grandfather died. His parents got divorced. It's been complicated. And so
yeah, this last semester was kind of rough. I ended up dropping a couple classes, but I'm taking them this semester, and it's they're going well so far this semester.
Yeah, I mean, it's just setbacks happen, and we just had to give ourselves some grace and know, like, that's okay. And just kind of keep going through it. But this team has been amazing. People still check up on us all the time. And I don't know that I could have done Ethan the service that he deserves if I did it by myself. So take every, just get past the fear. Fear drives so much stuff. Get past that fear and do
what you know you need to do to help your child. You'll be so glad that you did. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's really good wisdom for parents and others to consider moving forward. So we have a question. I know that Danielle wasn't able to be with us today, but we have someone asking, is the new Dell program national? Does anyone
The answer to yes, the answer to that is yes. And Danielle sends her apologies. She's very much under the weather. She said that she would answer any questions following up, but I will tell you that we did use the net to reach out and recruit for the Dell program. And as of yesterday, they had 200 applicants in the pool.
Very nice. That is great.
And if you don't mind, if I could add one thing onto that. So of course, you know, this pandemic's been terrible and everything, but if there is one, I don't want to call it necessarily a benefit, but one change that's kind of happened is more and more companies are actually allowing people the opportunity now to work from home. And I was listening to, you know, both Amy and Ethan talk, and I actually think that creates some opportunity here as well, because one of the biggest and most challenging things of these things is, you know, having to move to a place like Boise or Austin or things like that. Yeah. And in the new world, with people more working from home, like Ethan did with his internship, I think it makes that transition a little easier. I know for HP, we'll be a lot more in the mode where people work from home and they only work in the office occasionally. And so I think that gives people a lot more opportunity for some variety of having some space to work in some place that's very familiar to them and that they feel very comfortable. And that's where they spend most of their time working, but then also spend some time where they are in an office in more of a group setting. So the whole office environment and how we work in companies is changing. And I actually think that could be a benefit for individuals on the autism spectrum.
Yeah.
Maurice, I'm so glad you addressed that, because we're hearing from business that they're really looking at more of a hybrid model.
Yes, absolutely.
And that gives them access to a bigger talent pool.
Yes.
As you well know, you were ahead of the curve on this one, Maurice.
I do, but we really benefited from that, because in the past we have had individuals that we were interested in for internships that just weren't comfortable coming to Boise or coming to Houston. And this year it wasn't even an issue. We were able to say, you can stay at home and do your internship. And that actually allowed us to have access to some candidates that before we would not have been able to have access to. So.
And like Ethan can tell you, it's great to be able to code in your bedroom with your cats just coming and going. And
yeah, exactly.
He was like thrilled. He got to do his job and hang out with cats.
Good coworker.
Oh yeah.
Cats are our common new coworkers. I've seen a lot of cat tails on Zoom calls.
Yep.
But, Maurice, that's a really good point, because I think what we find too, even in our own team, because we're so spread out, it's allowed members that, like Trina, who's in the Upper Peninsula, to be able to work on projects like in the Detroit area and vice versa. So it's been a blessing in some regards for our team in terms of that team building. And I suspect we're hearing some of that from our business partners too, in terms of that stronger connectivity on internal teams too.
I think that's why it's so important for us to think nationally. And some of our companies, as you have said, Maurice, are also thinking internationally. So there's a lot of eyes on what's happening with these models and how you expand them to other areas, not just in our own country, but internationally. So, Ethan, I know he's been smiling again this whole time. Maurice, what did you say? France or Spain?
Well, I think that also, we could just look at our afternoon together. We couldn't all just get here on a Thursday afternoon in Scranton, right, to do this. And so we're representing all of the time coasts across the country, you know, from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And that's, again, that power of technology and the way that our worlds are changing. So there are so many exciting pieces to this in the midst of, you know, some of the more difficult things that folks have been going through. So another question that came in is that for many vocational rehabilitation counselors, and particularly folks who are newer to the field and the career, what might you suggest for them to begin this process of establishing partnerships with employers? So for our new VR counselors, they're like, wow, this stuff is really amazing, but how do I do it?
I think that's a whole
Go
other
ahead, Jenny.
class. You think that's a whole other class, don't you think? You know, having been a VR counselor many years ago, I think early on, there's that whole focus on employment, but we're really working with people like Ethan and families to help individuals build careers. And you can't do that without your business customer at the table with you. I'm not an expert in technology, but Maurice is.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we're helping build that career, you've really, we call it in the net, begin with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So in that role, understand where the individual wants to go, where their talents are, and what's the best way to support them in getting to that goal, while you're also understanding the business need, their process, and really making the connection. I'm using my sign language here. It's connecting the two customers. So Jenny, Gary, what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great, and coming as a counselor from working with individuals at a kind of full-time basis and transitioning and working with business, I think having a curiosity of how work gets done and asking those questions. I don't know too many people. I mean, Maurice, correct me if I'm wrong, but most people like to talk about what their business does, what their company is about, their culture. They get really excited about, being part of that and explaining that to other people. So to me, that's always kind of that warm opening, with a business when you're looking at making that connection is, tell me more about what you do and, what that looks like in terms of opportunities. And so it becomes less, I'm thinking less, maybe I might have some folks in mind that I'm working with in terms of folks like Ethan and other students and client customers. That's always, kind of implanted there, but I'm also in the moment listening to people like Maurice and understanding, how work gets done and, what's important to them in terms of their talent. Like Kathy said, it's that end in mind, and then bringing that information back to my customers so that they get that opportunity to hear a little bit more in the backstory and understanding the power of informational interviews, when working with your business. I'll do a shameless plug here, connecting with your NET person within your state, your National Employment Team point of contact, because they're getting all this great information that Kathy is, feeding to us on a regular basis, at all hours, Kathy, by the way. And that's always good too, because, Kathy's giving us information about, what's going on with companies, some of the trends that are happening and what's happening in various industries. And, that's, I think, where when we get excited about that, it becomes very infectious. And I think our client customers get excited about that stuff too and want to learn more. Gary, you want to piggyback or anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, echoing Jenny, truly that being genuinely curious about them and what matters to them and what they care about helps establish that trust. And as you establish that trust with that business, that they really know that they can trust you and that you're there to help them, is going to open so many doors. And it's going to give you opportunities to learn about things that exist within those businesses that you may not even know exist, because you're thinking superficially instead of really digging into that business and learning about them. So that's huge, being curious.
All right, thank you for that. Another question, what are the top skill sets that you see being valuable and sought after right now? The top skill sets.
Computer literacy, definitely. as the workplace is shifting to, more remote.
Mhm.
I think computer and digital literacy for any position has become even more in demand. So we're depending on companies like HP
Mhm.
and talented people like Ethan to help us continue figuring that out and making sure that whatever is out there digitally is also accessible. So we have several business partners that always focus on that. And there's a host of others, but that's one that really comes to mind.
Mhm.
Yeah, two that stand out for me as an employer are computer science is very big, kind of like what Kathy was mentioning. And then business analytics, any kind of data modeling, data science has really become huge, because so much is being done around either machine learning and gathering information off of devices, or looking at different pieces of information and trying to pull together a summary of what this information is telling us, have been areas that we've been hiring for a lot. And so, and not just HP, I know other companies as well, because we're competing with other companies for talent in these areas. And so, in fact, in our last two internships, where we've had with our Spectrum Success Program, those have been the areas that we've been able to place individuals in positions with HP.
I think, Lori, I would only add, Kathy and I've talked about this in terms of, a lot of times you hear soft skills, and we kind of talk more about like survival skills. So, right, Kathy, and Ethan's lived that in terms of those survival skills and things that you learn, and dream it, believe it, live it, pushing, like Amy was saying, pushing those fears, keep pushing those limits and stretching yourself. That's always, and I think that's where, if Danielle were on the line, that's a lot of the things Danielle would be speaking to, from a life coach perspective, are some of those survival skills when you're on the job and learning, some of those social cues and understanding, the interactive piece and emailing and all that communication component to it too.
And that ties into another question that came in for Ethan, in terms of what type of support was most helpful to you when you were getting started right at the very beginning and learning the job?
I think a couple types of support that were really helpful are, like being able to check in and like know how well I was doing at different aspects of the job right off the bat. Just like having Danielle be there as like somebody who I could check in with was very helpful in that regard. Because it's always kind of something that I'm a little bit nervous about, of like, how well am I doing in terms of my job or like my schoolwork and stuff like that. So it was good to be able to check in and get updates on how I was doing and just check in about that, because it's the kind of thing where I a lot of times kind of second guess myself, especially early on, where I haven't really established kind of a baseline standard of what I should be doing and like what it should look like. So I think also like how there was a lot of social support, just not even just for like me and for Danielle, but like just for like everybody within like the interns in general. And I think that was very helpful, because it was there were like a lot of social events. There was like interns a lot of times ate lunch together, and there was just a lot of social stuff like that that made it so I ended up kind of naturally being able to fit in with the other interns, and that sense of social belonging I felt also made it so I felt like I just kind of naturally meshed in with HP a lot better. And it just made it so I was like, I don't know how like that kind of company culture side of things made it so I ended up being a better worker in a way, just because I felt like I belonged in a way.
Yeah, really.
I remember you calling me, Ethan, and said, I think I found my people finally. Like, he was so happy to have this group where you know, people all had their little quirky niches and that was okay. And he felt very accepted, which was really nice. And I think for parents to really look and figure out what are your child's, what will they do well at. We can have ideas of what we want them to do, but it has to be something that they also want to do and that matches with some of their high interest areas. Ethan's always been really into computers. So finding those matches are going to make them feel like they fit in even better. And I remember Ethan calling me and saying that his supervisor told him, you know, you can take breaks, you can go for a walk. He's like, you're an intern, you don't need to just sit. He's like, you're gonna blow through all the work that I have figured out for you. Because Ethan has that ability, he can just sit and work for a long period of time, and they're like, go talk to people, go enjoy your lunch, go have a good time.
Right.
So that was really nice that they fostered that for him.
Yeah.
The other two things that I thought of from earlier was Ethan struggles a lot with organization, and so he does a lot with his like timers on his phone. I have my way of how I stay organized, but how he has figured out to stay organized looks different. So making sure that your kids have their way that they can stay organized, start them early, give them a phone early, and start teaching them the social etiquette of texting and timers and the calculator on your phone. And you can ask, you know, Google what, you know, how to spell something or do something. He uses his GPS phone for everything. Even familiar places, Ethan doesn't.
Yeah, I have like no internal sense of direction, so that's pretty much how I get around.
He doesn't have like that bird's eye view concept of like, oh, I'm driving here. He needs that GPS every moment. So I think phones have so much to them that can really support kids to set their schedules, to have a timer, to look up information. There's a lot that you can do with those. And I think if parents use that technology and train their kids early, it will really help them when they become the age where they can be employed.
Those are some really important tips, Amy. Thank you for sharing them, and Ethan as well. We have one more question from the chat, and if anyone else has questions, please, now is a good time to put them in the chat. But one of our viewers would like to know, are companies open to internships that can help people to just gain some experience and learn about the work culture? And kind of what's employers' response been to these kinds of learning opportunities?
So for our situation at HP, our internships are kind of a two-way street. So the internship is, from our perspective as a company, we usually have a problem that we want the interns to come in and help us solve. And it's a real problem. I mean, typically it's something that we haven't been able to figure out, and we want to have someone come in and give an outside perspective on, someone who might look at things differently. And so from our perspective, that's one of the key things we're looking for. But then the other one is we are constantly looking for people that would be a very good fit for HP. And so the internship is an opportunity in a very real setting for us to identify, okay, is this someone that we want to hire and make a long-term investment in from an HP perspective? And a lot of people can do coding. A lot of people can, can do work. It's how they do the work that really makes a difference for us. We have a very specific culture around how you work together with others, continually learning, continually being curious. And so we're looking for people like that. And the internship is an opportunity for us to really see, do people have that kind of personality and skill set within them? But it's also the other side of the street. It's an opportunity for the candidates to also see, is HP a place that they would want to work? And do they feel like they have a good fit with the culture? Do they feel like that's the kind of environment that they feel they can be successful in? And is this a way that they can really advance their career? And so from that perspective, it's kind of on both sides of those, and both of those really have to be accomplished. So we don't really have internships just for people to kind of see, okay, is HP kind of a cool place to work? It kind of has to be on both sides of that. They're bringing something to us and they're really helping us from a business perspective, but then they're also having the opportunity to assess, is this the kind of company that they would want to work for? And many companies have many different cultures. And so it's important for people to have an opportunity to see firsthand what it's really like to work for a specific company.
Yeah, to really have that mutual benefit, right? For both the person as well as for the employer.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm wondering, we're probably getting close to being able to wrap up, and I'm wondering if there are any final comments from the group that you would like to share with the audience.
I just want to say thank you. Again, this is a team that came together in October and are back together now because I think this story, this type of story, is so important for people to understand. We're in this together. And if we're going to move that needle on the employment of individuals with disabilities, we have to do it with the family, with the individuals, with our business customers, and with our partners at the community level. This is about all of us working together. And when that happens, people like HP get great talent. And I understand Ethan's graduating, Maurice.
Yes,
so,
I took a note of that.
yeah. Get to him quick before Danielle knows.
Yeah, exactly.
No. So I just want to say thank you, because I think this is the type of story that every person in our field needs to understand. This is how we make it successful for both of our customers, both the individual, talented, smiling Ethan, and our business customer, Maurice. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Anything from the rest of the group that you would like to share?
I'd say, just echoing, thank you, Lori, Maurice and Amy, Ethan, and everyone on the line. It has been just, as I was saying to our team earlier, this has just been a joy to watch how Ethan has, just seeing his transformation from like even 2 years ago, and watching him develop into, a young adult. And when I think of Ethan's story, I think of that proverb of, if you want to get there fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go together. And to me, that's kind of how this story kind of wraps that proverb up. It's just truly been kind of a village that's been walking alongside with Ethan in various parts of the journey. So thank you.
Well, that was beautifully said. And, for me, vocational rehabilitation has been my life. This is with Kathy. We're probably into 4 decades at this point in time, and adding as we continue to go forward. So for those counselors who are out there joining us today, we just want to applaud your work. And for our business partners, we couldn't do it without you. And Amy and Ethan, you bring together that whole team, and we couldn't be more pleased. We want to also let you know that the original recording was part of our 19th annual conference on disability at the University of Scranton. And this year, we're going to be celebrating our 20th annual U.S. conference on disability. It will be virtual. And it's going to be on October 14th. The topic, this is our 3rd year of exploring autism across the spectrum and really looking to build inclusive communities. It's part of our Edward R. Leahy Jr. endowment. It's part of our Penobscot College of Professional Studies, and it's also in partnership with the All One Foundation, which has provided a grant to a 13-county area in Northeast and North Central Pennsylvania to really look at building the services that are available for people with autism. So we hope that you'll consider joining us. We are planning a very exciting program, and we thank you for joining us today. If you have questions, rebecca.dalgan@scranton.edu will help you with your CEUs to get your CRC credits. So please, your evaluations will be coming out right after this program. Please fill them out and get them back to us. I'd like to thank Aaron Dunleavy for helping us with all of the technology, putting this together, along with Jason Wimmer, who's from our IT department, and we couldn't do it without him. I'd just love to say thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of the day. Take good care, stay safe. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, so nice to meet you, Ethan. Thank you.
Nice to meet you too.
And Amy, very good to meet you. And Jenny, Gary, oh my goodness.